Bienvenidos a Water Talk. Today we will be talking with Nichole Morgan. She is a board member of the California State Water Resources Control Board, and I'm really excited to talk with her. And this is a sequel of the many different interviews that we have done with water board members, people that are actually decision makers that are making decisions of water in California. They are the 5 people in charge of approving, passing, reviewing a lot of the regulations in California. Preparing for this episode, I was re-listening to Felicia's Marcus episodes 26, 25, Joaquin, episode 32, and Laurel Firestone. And for me, this is a great in-depth conversation. Joaquin, for instance, talked about the division of finance assistance so that the water boards not only regulates water rights, but also that they are putting money towards funds. So that was good. And Laurel was talking about these funds used to meet the human right to water in California. That is the name of the fund is SAFER. So we will be talking with Nichole Morgan about it. For our national audience, think of this as the institution that is in charge of the surface water rights and water quality. That is the water boards. These people have at the end, they are 5 board members that they meet in the public and have these discussions about water quantity and water quality. And in this case, sometimes even funding projects. And Nichole is the one that was in charge of this department for funding projects. Now it is a board member, and she's making decisions on the 3 of those. And I am really happy to talk to her, to listen to her career. She's the engineer member of the water boards, which I think is really cool. Our engineer folks will be really happy about it. And to listen from her, to learn from her experiences and some of the policies that she's managing in the boards. And what about you, Malika? What are you interested to listen from Nichole?
Yeah, like you were saying, Sam, I always think it's interesting to talk to these folks at the State Water Resources Control Board, which is the full title for what we're calling the Water Board here. I think people will call it either the State Water Resources Control Board or sometimes just the State Water Board. And it is going to be interesting to talk to Nichole as the engineer member of the State Water Resources Control Board. And I am really curious. Something that we talked a little bit about is the SAFER program, which is a drinking water program in the state of California. That's it feels like it's the executive or enforcing program or a program that has been developed to actually enact the human right to water law that was passed in 2012 in California. So California in 2012 was the first state in the United States to pass a human right to water law that, it declares that every human being has the right to safe, clean, affordable, and accessible water adequate for human consumption, cooking, and sanitary purposes. And we've talked about the human right to water quite a bit on the Water Talk podcast. And the SAFER program is a statewide program that is enacting the human right to water. So it'll be really interesting to hear more about this program, specifically from Nichole, and just the where it's going and also what some of the challenges have been. So I'm really excited to learn more about that, to learn more about just all of the vast water quality kind of operations and what's being done and what's on the horizon as well. So really looking forward to that too.
So without further ado, let's talk with Nichole Morgan. Bienvenidos a Water Talk. Today we're excited to have the opportunity to talk with Nichole Morgan. Nichole is the civil engineer board member of the California State Water Resources Control Board. She was appointed by Governor Gavin Newsom in 2021 after having served as an assistant deputy director in the Division of Finance Assistance of the Water Boards, which is one of the many public service positions that she has held. Previously, she worked for public agencies and engineering consulting firms. We're going to learn more about that. We are really looking forward to talking with you, Nichole, today. Bienvenida.
And thank you for inviting me.
Nichole, we're really excited, and I provided a really brief bio of all what you have done in your career, which is actually quite impressive, and it has a spanning from engineering consulting, public service, and now your role as a water board member. Can you share with us your journey and your career path towards becoming a water resource control board member, please?
Thank you for the warm welcome, Sam. It is great to join you today. Looking back, my journey started in elementary school when my mom would buy me these workbooks to work on over the summer. And so a lot of them were math books. And so every summer I would do the math workbook for the year ahead. So by the time that I got to junior high and high school, I was actually in advanced classes. So I started off in high school in advanced geometry. And that first week, my math teacher and my science teacher both came up to me and told me that there was this class I had to go to. And it was after school. I was, okay. So I went. That class ended up being MESA, the Mathematics, Engineering, Science, and Achievement Club. So that's how I got introduced to engineering. So I like to say it's all my mother's fault, who is totally artistic, that she ended up with an engineer for her daughter. So this is also why I also believe that it's very important to introduce the next generation to careers and just different things that you would never think of, and that they have not been introduced to, so that it widens their horizon, and you just never know what someone may pick up and may be interested in for their future. So I ended up getting a degree in civil engineering, and I was lucky enough to start my career at the largest inland surface water discharge wastewater facility west of the Mississippi River. So I started there thinking that, oh, so cool. I get to work on this large facility that discharges into the Bay Delta, and what a great impact. So I did do some projects on that facility. But little did I know that there were also these small outlying facilities, and that's what I primarily got assigned to. And one of the ones that really stood out to me was a small facility that still discharged to land. It was in the Delta, did not have a lot of connections to it. And in this area, we still had high groundwater, which made it really difficult for this facility to operate. And just the challenges of going through all of the different design options, the alternatives. Do we connect it now? And we're now in the 90s and going into the early 2000s. And just those challenges in learning and being a young engineer right out of college and having to work through all of those challenges was so fascinating to me, and learning all of these different design alternatives and going through just the pros and cons, and knowing that I was putting together a presentation that was going to go to the County Board of Supervisors to vote on what was going to be the next steps in this small facility that in this, for me, this greater area. So that again just had this profound impact on me of what a difference that an engineer has on people and on the environment. And so eventually I ended up leaving there, and I went to the private sector. I had this plan of, let me see the public side, let me see the private side, make a decision. Where do I fit best? How can I have the most impact? So over the next 10 years, I spent time in both public and private, worked my way into leadership positions, managed an office for the private sector, also became a practice leader, and really at that time I oversaw several different projects throughout California, also through a couple of different states. Managed to go over to Saipan and do a drinking water project, and off to a couple other states. Just really had a varied experience from starting off at a wastewater treatment facility to then going and learning also drinking water, learning how to design drinking water facilities, and really taking a look at the impact that for example, a wastewater facility such as that small one that I very first worked on can have on drinking water systems and our groundwater, and how the two really are interrelated. So through designing projects, you also have to get those projects permitted. You have to get the permits. You have to go through the regulatory process. And that was the part that most engineers didn't want to do. We want to do our calculations. We want to design it. Here it is, build it. It's good. But you have to get permits. So I started diving in more into the regulatory process and how to permit, and just learning more about that piece. And so at some point I became the expert of our company of how to go through that process. So that became my thing. Also, this seems to happen to me a lot. One of the seniors within the company walks by and says, "Nichole, there's a meeting later tonight. You need to go." So here I go again. I go to the meeting, and it ends up being the California Water Environment Association, also known as CWEA. So I go to the meeting. Well, somehow I left the meeting as an officer. Don't know how I get into these things. So I end up volunteering for CWA at the local and state level for over 12 years. It really is this group of engineers and operators that work together. They work together to make the environment better. It really is a hands-on group, and through that, I also became their government affairs chair to disseminate information, make sure operators knew what was going on. Really did a lot of training, again, to not only just for engineers, but for operators, to make sure that we were all working collaboratively together. During that time, I was asked to sit on a panel at WEFTEC, which is the parent association for CWA. And so it's the Water Environment Federation. And they were celebrating the 35th anniversary of the Clean Water Act. I was asked to provide my experience of where we were and what did the future look like for the Clean Water Act. I was completely blown away that of all the younger engineers out there, I was asked to be one of 5 to sit on this panel. So then, to my surprise, fast forward 15 years later, the California Water Environment Association asked me to be their guest editor for their magazine for the 50th anniversary of the Clean Water Act. So you can say that as my career went on, the Clean Water Act and disseminating the information about what does the Clean Water Act mean really has become dear to me. It really has become a passion of mine to really dig in and to really understand the importance of the Clean Water Act and how it applies to what is really my everyday life. So looking at how did I get here now? In 2009, I decided to return to the state of California and to join the State Water Resources Control Board. I had worked for the state in another capacity during the time of my looking at private and government. And in 2009, I decided, I want to go to the state, want to work for the State Water Resources Control Board. That's who implements the Clean Water Act. So I can't explain just how grateful I am to have had the opportunity to work in various capacities. So I had the opportunity to be the NPDES compliance and enforcement supervisor for the Central Valley Water Board. I also was their NPDES program manager, which was, I have to say, it really was one of my favorite jobs. I really did enjoy that aspect and that time in my career.
So, can you tell us a little bit about the difference between the State Water Resources Control Board and these regional control boards, like the example you gave with the Central Valley Regional Water Board?
Of course I can. So, the State Water Board spans the entire state. That's where most of the policy comes from. The regional board we have 9 regional boards. They are semi-autonomous and they're based on the 9 major watersheds in California. And they implement the policy. With some exceptions, the Division of Drinking Water is under the State Board, Water Rights is under the State Board, and the Division of Financial Assistance is under the State Board.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, no, that's super helpful because I think we've talked to a few of you and this is something that just comes up. And so just to keep our listeners straight on everything, the other question I had is you mentioned NPDES, which is the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System. And we have a national audience now. So can you talk a little bit about just connecting that national program to the work that you did on a regional board?
Of course I can. So the NPDES program comes from the Clean Water Act and requires discharges to federal waters to be permitted and meet certain standards. These standards ensure that discharges do not degrade the water quality and harm people or the environment, with the goal being that our waters are swimmable and fishable. That's the short answer. It also protects, we think about that piece, but they also protect drinking water sources and irrigation waters for agriculture.
Yeah, that makes sense to keep that fresh water fresh, right?
And I think this is following your career path, Nichole. So you're mentioning that now you return to the State Water Resources Control Board. Well, you went to the regional water boards, and then you went back to the State Water Resources Control Board. I think that was 2019, and when you joined the Division of Finance Assistance.
Yes.
And that really coincide with the passage of Safe and Affordable Funding for Equity and Resilience Program, the SAFER, also known as SAFER. And you were the Assistant Deputy Director, and you led various projects for drinking water, wastewater, and groundwater. So we typically think of these agencies as regulatory, but in this case, this is a divisions of financial assistance. So what is the role of this division, and can you share with us some examples on the work that you did?
Yeah, this one, as you stated, Sam, this division is different. Its primary goal is not regulatory. It is to administer funds. So some of those funds are associated with the Clean Water Act, the Clean Water State Revolving Fund, which is loans or principal forgiveness of a loan. There's also one that is very similar for drinking water. So there's also programs that administers grants like the SAFER program. The SAFER program was developed through a drinking water needs assessment and taking a look at the needs of drinking water facilities. Though it was identified that there is a gap in our funding. Our funding and our grant funding in particular from our general fund and from state bonds that are approved by our voters did not cover such things as operation and maintenance and only covered so much for technical assistance. And we found that there is a greater need in those areas. So our safer funds help to cover that greater need in order for us to move projects through design and construction quicker. It was taking us too long to get those projects complete. So when SAFER was passed, we had approximately 1.6 million people who did not have access to clean and safe drinking water. Today, we have changed that and have provided over 900,000 people with safe drinking water through the SAFER program. So that has been reduced. Collectively, about 12 million Californians across the state will benefit from the board's funding of 395 projects that will improve water, increase water supplies, and protect the environment. So this really shows how a program like the SAFER program really can come together to really, as I'll say, we're going too slow on projects. It really has advanced those projects and is really making a difference for many Californians throughout the state, but in particular, the Central Valley, the desert, and within in some areas of Southern California. When I first started with the program, there actually was a project down in the LA area. It was the community of Sativa. They did not have safe drinking water. And one of the things, this is a little different than most projects, because this just shows how a program such as the SAFER program, where we start looking at the reasons why people do not drink their water. Now, we have many systems that we really need to move forward that have nitrate contamination, arsenic contamination, and that are on our radar and that we need to move forward. We also have systems that are just simply failing. And for not only contamination, but also just from lack of maintenance. And that's where the SAFER program really did take a step back and say, what are the other needs for funding? Where can we really make a difference in the water for Californians? And one of those areas was operation and maintenance. And that's where you bring in other systems such as Sativa, where it was a truly just a failing system, a system that had no maintenance. And the water, when residents would turn it on, was just brown, where that is considered to be a secondary contaminant. As we know, many are not going to drink brown water. And that system had just failed. So through many different funding sources, including some SAFER funds, we were able to take that system, bring in an administrator. It was the first system that we assigned an administrator to. It was the very first. And that's how the administrator program was developed. It's now running under SAFER, and do a consolidation, working through and really redoing that system and taking a look at failing and also systems that are at risk, and looking at the O&M of systems and making sure that we get the technical assistance in and being able to assign an outside party to come in to breed that technical assistance and that knowledge to a small system that is really needed to help protect all Californians. So that's one that really does stand out to me, that really started right at the beginning of SAFER and helped to develop our administrative program, which I think is very critical to helping systems move forward.
And Nichole, but one thing that we should highlight is that we have actually put a dent on the people that didn't have access to drinking water. I mean, we went from 1.6 million now to 600,000, 700,000. And I mean, it is 700,000 people. We need to get it to zero, because it's not fun that people don't have access to drinking water. And it's been 5 years. And something also to recognize is that, I mean, not even with a magic wand, you can reconvert all these systems and put it into good shape. We're doing our due diligence. So you have also led other programs, including the lead sampling program in childcare centers. Could you share more about the goals and impact of this program, Nichole?
Yes. And so the childcare center led sampling program is a very important one. Just as we've talked about the importance of providing safe, clean drinking water to all, the next generation and the youngest of us are the most vulnerable. And so in 2018, all licensed child care centers located in a building or constructed prior to January 1st, 2010 were required to test for lead in their drinking water by January 1st, 2023, and every 5 years after. The state board administered the funding program where centers could have the testing done for free and be reimbursed for the cost of fixtures that had elevated levels in lead. So that way, parents like me could be reassured that our children were not drinking lead contaminated water while they were in a childcare center. As we know, our children spend, I want to say, about 80% of their day in childcare centers. So this is critical. Also, the water board we have on our website where parents can go and they can check and they can see the status of a childcare center before enrolling their child in that center. The centers are also required to provide the information. So one of the things about this for me is one of my most important roles is ensuring that children have access to clean, safe drinking water. So this project, when it came over to the state board, and I was still staff, I was an assistant deputy director in the division of financial assistance. This was so dear to me to work with the Department of Social Services to ensure that we were able to stand up this program and the funding component of it to make sure that centers understood that we were going to be in partnership with them, provide the technical services, and also be able to reimburse them if they needed to go out and get a new fixture to make sure that our children had safe drinking water.
Yeah, thank you. And also another project that you work was during the COVID pandemic, that you introduced computer-based testing for drinking water and wastewater operator certification programs. That this may go back to some of the work that you have done earlier in your career. Could you share with us on the importance of innovation like this in the water sector?
Yes, I can. This definitely goes back to my earlier career of working with operators and understanding just the needs of operators and how critical our operators are to the work that we do. I've been working with operators for over 25 years now, and just looking at the number of operators that we are looking at to retire over the next few years, and the whether we're looking at drinking water operators that are making sure that our drinking water supply is safe. We just talked about the Safer program and the work that it does, and a large part of that is, we remember, the technical assistance and the operation and maintenance. That was the funding gap that was there. Operators are key to making sure that our systems work correctly and they're delivering safe and affordable drinking water to their residents. On the wastewater side, the same thing. Operators are key to ensure that the water, when goes back out into the environment, it is safe and it is not going to be harmful, not just to the environment, but to us. So, I cannot speak enough in how much respect I have for those operators that are out there who do their jobs well. And that is the mass majority of them who take this job very seriously. And, they look to advance their certifications and to do more and to really serve the public. And so before COVID, we offered these exams 2 times a year in person. Operators would have to get in their car and drive either to Northern or Southern California, sit in a large banquet room, and do a test by paper, and then wait months to get the results to see if they pass or fail, and then have to, if they didn't pass, to do it all over again. So I started asking the question, because this program is actually under the Division of Financial Assistance. So this is one of the regulatory pieces that division does have. Start asking the question, why aren't we doing this better? How can we provide more opportunity to have more certified and qualified operators out there? Because this is key. So we took on the challenge in order to have computer-based testing, also known as CBT, done within under a year. I got told it couldn't happen. Well, we did make it happen. We called other agencies, we called partners, we talked to the operators, we figured out how to take our paper test, put that into a computerized test. We worked with testing centers, and they are located throughout the state, to make sure that operators could go anywhere anywhere that there's a testing center located, and there are testing centers located all throughout California, and that they could go into one of these locations that even during COVID, it would be a safe location that they could go into and take a test. All they had to do was submit their information once they were approved through us, submit it to a testing location, make an appointment that was convenient to them, and not having to take a day, 2 days off of work in order to go in and take a test. They can go, drive 20 minutes, drive sometimes maybe around the corner and take this test, get the results within a day or two. Basically, we would get their results at the state board almost immediately. We just double check and send them off their result right away. Really speed up that process and get the certifications out there so that everyone can have operators at higher certifications, so that you can feel more confident in that operator operating your system. I cannot express how important changes like this one is for our industry, as we continue to look at how many will be retiring in the near term and how few are in line to enter. We need to look at ways not only to get the word out about this great industry, but also to create pathways to enter it.
For sure. And I mean, I think one thing is clear from our conversation today, and that's that there's not a shortage of water challenges in California, considering just droughts and groundwater management and climate change, and also ensuring the human right to water. What do you see the greatest potential, or where do you see the greatest potential to make positive differences on water in California?
Thank you. This is always an interesting question. So we have come a long ways over the last 50 plus years. This is going to be the 50th anniversary of the Safe Drinking Water Act. 50 years ago, we didn't have a federal law saying what was safe for our drinking water. Now we do. So we've come a long way. However, we have so much further to go. Not everyone can turn on their faucet and it be safe. Not everyone has belief that they can turn on their faucet and feel that it's safe, even though in many areas it is safe. So
that's really interesting. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Like, what is it, this issue of it not looking safe, or is it, a longer, more issues of mistrust, or a longer issue of mistrust? Or like, why do you think there is this difference in actually not having safe water and then a belief that there's no safe water? to drink?
I believe that there is some mistrust, unfortunately. In some areas where the water is safe, in some areas where the water is unsafe, it does look safe. And then the communication goes out, and then others grab onto it. And then there becomes this global, is my water safe? This question. And there are some who out there who will take advantage of that. And misinformation gets out there, unfortunately.
So it's something that's kind of happened where like every once in a while there has been this miscommunication, and that perpetuates like a lack of trust or security in knowing the water is safe.
Yes. And there are consumer reports that do go out. All water agencies are to send them. They do go out and show that the water is safe. So I believe
Yeah, that is a challenge.
it's one of the greatest challenges of our industry. I believe just as I was introduced to engineering at a young age, and I've continued to learn through my career, we have to continue to educate and provide public outreach. Those are key to make sure that not only does the public know that their when and where their water is safe, but they also know who to ask, where to go, what questions to ask.
And Nicole, I might be wrong, but also for our audience to be more proactive on reducing the mistrust. I live in Davis, and I think I receive at least once a year. So my water has to be tested twice a year. Once I receive it, and because I'm a water geek, I typically read what it comes with the statement and read the different parameters and go into the water quality sampling. So I think here the ask is, please, folks, like really get the word out that every public agency should submit their results for the water quality test, and that we should take a look at it as you're saying. So going back to so you were talking about the greatest challenge. One of that was addressing the human right to water, or having everyone on the state with drinking water. Any other challenge that you see where we can make a positive difference, or elaborate on that?
Sure. Um, so I think, well, one is education, and another is the change in the industry. When I started working in the industry, there was one way of doing things, one way of doing our calculations. The industry has changed for many different reasons, and it's the willingness to be able to learn and to grow as times change, as our climate changes, just different changes that occur. So not only the education of those that may not be in water or our youth, but also those like me who have been in the industry for a long time. There's always room to grow, to listen, to learn. And when I speak to education and also public outreach, that is also for me to get out to public outreach, to be in communities, to learn more than just what my learned experience is, but to learn from others' learned experience and to grow myself so that as I am now in this role, I can fully embrace others' learned experience, technical experience, thoughts, perspectives to fully implement, California water. It's not just a one path is right solution to really get us to whether we are looking to the human right to water or the human right to sanitation. We all need to come together in order to put all the pieces of the puzzle together in order to achieve these rights for all.
That's such a great vision and way to think about all of this at the same time, because there's so many moving parts. So I think puzzle pieces is a great analogy for us. We always like to end by asking our guests if there's anything more that you want people to know about your work. And also we, and our listeners on Water Talk can support your efforts. So how can we support you?
Well, one, I want to just thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity today to come talk to you and spread the word about what I believe is a great industry. So the other thing is, I myself love to get out and talk about water. So I ask others, please, if you are a water geek, please, or you're just emerging, please get out, talk about water, spread the word, ask questions, because the more that we do, the more learn about water, the more we share our experiences, the more we all can grow. The more knowledge that each of us have, the closer we will get to achieving the human right to water and the human right to sanitation for all. So I thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Water Talk podcast. I'm Malika Noko, an assistant professor and state extension specialist in agricultural water management at the University of Wisconsin-Madison.
I'm Faith Kearns, and I'm the Director of Research Communications with the Arizona Water Innovation Initiative at Arizona State University.
I'm Samuel Sandoval. I'm a professor at UC Davis and a cooperative extension specialist in water resources management at the University of California Division of Agriculture and Natural Resources. If you enjoy our show, please review, listen, like, and subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. Please find transcripts and additional content at watertalkpodcast.com. Original music by Paloma Herrera Thomas.